That was a rousing kickoff for today. So my name's Phil Thompson. I'm a professor of urban planning at MIT. I'm also was the deputy mayor for New York City under Bill de Blasio, and I've been around for a while. Today, we're going to hear from two speakers, Istiak, who will introduce himself, but who's going to address these issues of powering finance from a global perspective. What? Oh, we are going to have a spiritual exercise. Okay, we didn't know that. Pause. We're going to begin with a spiritual exercise, and then we'll come back to the panel.
Hi guys, I'm so excited to join you all today. I'm Bliss. I'm a first-year student at the Divinity School, and I have the opportunity to guide everyone in one of our lovely spiritual exercises today. So what we're going to be doing is a bit of a guided meditation that's based around a mantra, so like a phrase or a word that's significant to you that helps you kind of feel connected to yourself and to the environment around you. And this exercise is going to be a little more in the meditative realm, so we thought it would be helpful if you got in a comfortable position, maybe uncrossed your legs, kind of like relaxed your muscles. And for part of this exercise, we invite everyone to close their eyes, but it's up to you. If you want to, no judgment either way. It's all good. And then once you're ready, we would like you to start noticing your breath and just notice your breathing. There's no need to breathe deeper or anything. Just notice how it is naturally. And while you're doing that, we have some specific sensations that we want you to pay attention to especially. So try to feel when the air comes into your nose, feel when it goes down into your lungs, and if you can, maybe try to feel your diaphragm expanding. And then when you breathe out, feel the process reverse. And we really want you to tune into those sensations as you continue to breathe and start paying attention to other things that you notice happening in your body. I would like you to consider what it is you want to breathe in and what you want to release. We want you to see the offerings that your mind offers you while you do this. And we want you to consider the phrase, breathing in, I receive life, breathing out, I am grateful. Please feel free to modify this mantra in a way that resonates with you and change it to match your experiences. But either way, repeat the mantra that you have in mind for the next several cycles of breath. Let your thoughts turn to everyone you're sharing your breath with in this room. We're all sharing the same air, and we are all cohabitating the same environment and living underneath the same atmosphere. Please remember that the air we're breathing is only available because of the dutiful care that plants provide for the earth and the oxygen they produce. Allow this awareness and gratitude to grow and encompass all the sounds of your life. And feel connected with the sources that are beyond ourselves and the environmental beauty that's right before our eyes. And while you're thinking about these things, notice anything that changes in your body, and just take in the sensations. And then after you notice these things, turn once more to the specific to yourself. And while you do that, turn your mind to a joyful memory, maybe one that's recent or powerful, and search for a memory that you can recall vividly, and that feels very visceral to who you are as a person. This memory could be anything that you want it to be, as long as it's positive and joyful. And just for a moment, consider what that might be. Once you have chosen a memory, allow it to settle over you and fill you up. And in response to this experience, it might be helpful to ask yourself any one of these questions. Where are you in your memory? What's happening? How did you get there? Who is with you? This includes people and non-human beings also. What do you see in your memory? What visual sensation happened at this moment? What do you hear? What do you smell? Do you taste anything? And what do you touch? How does your body feel in this remembered moment? Where does the joy live? Does the sensation feel like an expansion of the chest, the heart space? Could it be a fluttering in your stomach? Or a general lightness or ease? How does your joy feel in your body? Is it possible to summon the sensation of joyful being, and are you able to feel it now? And if you do, what do you notice in your body? What is your breath doing? What might it feel like to smile? Do you feel as though the tension you were holding until this moment has been released? And if it hasn't released yet, which is totally, it's completely okay either way, what would it feel like to let go of some of that tension if you have the opportunity? Allow the joy to fill you. Take that sensation of joy that you're feeling and stay with that moment for several more breaths. When you're ready, slowly flutter your eyes open. Take in this space once more. Notice how the joyful sensation feels now. Maybe notice it dissipating in your brain as your brain is forced to process other information, and see whether you can hold on to a sliver of what you found in this moment to come back to later. Hold it inside of yourself and try to just keep it for moments that you need it. And at this moment, I would invite all of you to do a little partner sharing exercise and turn to each other to talk about how you experience this joy in your body, If you did, totally fine if you didn't. And there are a few different ways that you could communicate this joy to each other. Obviously, you could do it in words and describe it verbally, but if it feels like it would align more with your experience to do it with like movement or gesture or pointing, we would be glad to encourage that too. Really just express yourself in whatever way feels best for you. And while you're doing this sharing, I would really encourage you to focus on the physical sensation that you felt instead of sharing anything about the memory itself. Although if you would like to discuss the memory, we're totally open to that. And yeah, just go ahead and share with each other.
We gotta move.
Yeah.
We're a half hour behind.
Okay. Okay, I think we're kind of in a rush here, so just bring it back whenever feels right.
Yeah, really, yeah.
All right, let's get back to the full group conversation. I wanted to thank all of you guys for participating and sharing. And I also wanted to invite you all at the end of our session to write a word or phrase from your experience that resonates with you and that reflects the joy you've been feeling. And I believe there's a wall that we want them to be stuck up on, but nobody told me what wall that is, so I will let you know when I find out. Maybe just put them somewhere in here. Thank you very much for participating.
So what we're going to do, and thank you, what we're going to do is we're going to hear from Ishtayak first, then Yasmin, and then me for about 5 minutes each. Then we'll have some time for conversation, Q&A, questions and answers right after that. And then we're going to break into discussion groups for about 25 minutes for you all to put your own thoughts and issues right on the agenda, write them down, and we'll ask each group. I think we'll divide into 3 groups. The middle looks a little big, so maybe we'll ask a few of you to join a group on the side. We'll have 3 groups, and we'll ask that each group select a note taker and a facilitator, and then talk about what you're thinking about based on the conversation. Then we'll hear from each of the groups, and then reopen the conversation again with everyone. And so that's the format we're going to roll with. Is that okay? Everyone got that? So good. We'll start with Ishtayak.
Thank you.
And then Yasmin, and then me. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Thompson, and hello, everyone. I'm Ishtayak. I'm a PhD student at Northeastern University. I'm doing a PhD on public policy, looking at mostly climate justice and climate finance. And I look at loss and damage and kind of trying to understand how community people understand losses and damages depending on their social context and their kind of country context. At the same time, how, depending on their kind of understanding, how they see future as a transformation. Additionally, I'm not only a kind of PhD student, I'm a researcher from Global South. And I've been involved in the policy advocacy in the global policy negotiation for 6 years now. I've been involved, not in kind of government delegates, but I work as an observer to help government delegates to understand the politics and in the negotiation. So we have been hearing a lot from yesterday that how this election change of administration can impact the legislations within US. I will give you a glimpse at how this change of administration can also impact the global South, the global policy negotiation, by sharing two examples, what has happened in the past, and then we can kind of get an idea of what might happen in the future as well. 5 minutes, really short time, I'll just kind of try to touch base, but you will have an idea of what happens in the climate negotiation and the kind of decisions and the boards where we get finance for climate finance for the global South. The first example is we were doing a negotiation on the loss and damage, but then we didn't have a separate loss and damage track. We had adaptation track, but within that, we used to discuss loss and damage as a paragraph. And the way it happens, a group of negotiators come up with a text. Normally, it used to happen by the developed country comes with a text, and then we have a negotiation how the text should look like. But from recent years, the developing country, the LDC countries, they are coming up with a text. But at that time, we didn't have that kind of way. So the developed country came up with a text, and the way COP happens, it's 2 weeks' time. We start discussing the text, and by the end of 2 weeks, we should have a decision on the text. But the UN system is kind of one loophole that the developed countries and the countries that do not kind of believe in climate change, they try to take advantage is in the UN system, you have to have 100% consensus on the text. If one country says, I don't agree with it, then the text will not get approved. So we had conversations, negotiation for 2 weeks, and end of the day, all the countries agreed to the text. Okay, there were compromises from both sides, but then at least agreed on the text and said, okay, we should approve this. During this 2 week, one country didn't say a single word, didn't say anything to the text. But the moment it was supposed to get approved, the country raised their flag and then say, I have a comment, and then say, please put a quotation mark at the beginning of the text, and then please put a quotation mark at the end of the text, as they did, and then say, my country doesn't approve anything within this. And the lead negotiator was from US. So this has happened, and then the whole negotiation and everything fell apart. The text didn't got approved, and then that COP, we didn't have any decision on that text. So this has happened in the past. We have seen this. So this is a way the administrations as powerful as US can hold discussions on climate legislations and climate policy at the global level. I'll use another example. I don't know how much time I have. GCF is the biggest climate finance source for global South and vulnerable countries. But the board, in the name of equality, has 12 developed country board member representatives, 12 developing country board member representatives, 2 observer status for civil society organizations. However, when we have seen the board discussion, we have did an analysis from the very beginning of GCA board to 2022. We have analyzed all the board meetings, the transcripts, and realized how much power the developed country board members hold in the board, because the number of times they have raised concerns against different proposals submitted by developing countries is way high than the developing country board members. At the same time, they argue on vague criteria, for example, paradigm shift. What is paradigm shift? And they argue this proposal does not have enough paradigm shift element, and then they hold the discussion on this proposal. So these are the kind of vague or ambiguity that they take advantage of. The funny thing is, the board member who said this proposal does not have enough paradigm shift material in it, he himself said, I don't really understand what paradigm shift it is. So you understand the kind of intention there. Also, climate reality, climate rational, a lot of the time we have seen the majority of the adaptation proposals have been kind of tagged with, this project doesn't have enough climate rationality. But the problem is nowadays, it's very difficult to segregate which is pure development, which is pure climate change project, because all the issues are getting impacted by climate change. Luckily, I worked with one of the proposals submitted by UNDP at GCF, withdrawn because of climate rationality. And then we worked on the proposal to make it more climate rational to be able to kind of get them approved by GCF. The funny thing is, one might kind of argue, but at the GCF, no proposals get rejected. Hardly 2 or 3 proposal has been rejected so far. So all the proposal gets approved. So what's the issue? The issue is it gets delayed for 3 to 5 years. Most of the proposals you will see gets approved, at least it takes at least 3 years. There are proposals that took 5 years. Issue is when the proposal was written in the context, in these 5 years, the context has changed. So even though the proposal should have been so effective for the issue, it doesn't get that much effectiveness. But anyway, I don't want to kind of talk only about the challenges. I want to kind of talk about some hope because it's an environmental joy conference. So I know Michael mentioned a story that motivated me to work in this space because I'm an anthropologist, so I didn't have so much climate change exposure during my bachelor and master's. But I was struggling to understand like which area should I choose. But that story gave me motivation that I want to work on loss and damage because this affects people immensely. And that's just one story. I have like many stories. And through those stories, I have understood when we have a mutual stress, a mutual trauma, it also creates a mutual capacity and mutual motivation. And Bangladesh is a country which has like great climate policy, but really poor in implementation and financial support. I was struggling to understand like how can I help these people, but then I came across with a program which is called Nijerai Kori in Bangla, but in English it's so like we do it by ourselves, where the community people, they come together, do a kind of a priority assessment, which the community need the most, and then they do it by themselves. Maybe not what it could have been the best, but they do it kind of to their best of their ability. Finance, they collect the money within the community and try to do it. So when there is motivation, we don't really need legislation. We don't really need kind of financial support. We can do it by ourselves. Another point, my final point, is a lot of the time, and it's again based on the experience that we had with the previous administration when Trump was other president, a lot of the times what helps is changing the language. I know now going forward, we will have a lot of problem with the climate change word, but the good thing is if you change it, then if you change the narrative in your proposal, in your kind of voice from climate change to disaster management, then a lot of the issues get dissolved. You still get the money, you're still doing what you wanted to do with the climate change narrative, you are doing the same thing but with a disaster management narrative. And again, it's dealing with US finance, we have seen this helps a lot when there is a administration that doesn't support climate change argument that much. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm going to sit because I'm wearing heels, and I'd like to not stand. I can mostly see everybody, but thanks so much for having us today. My name is Yasmin Yacobi. I take she, her pronouns. I'm currently the Deputy Chief of Staff in the Office of Energy, Justice, and Equity. Let me see if I can get the clicker to work. Not yet, but I think it's going to work now. Perfect. Okay, thank you. And I'm really excited to be here with you all today. I have some slides because I'm a visual learner, and so you can use them, you can not look at them, it's whatever you want. But I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the programs that exist in the federal government and some of the financing that we have available to further energy and environmental justice. So just very quickly as an overview, and actually before I even get into any of this, I just want to say that right now, I'm speaking on behalf of the Department of Energy as the Deputy Chief of Staff of this office for this set of slides. Once I'm done with the slides, I'm more than happy to talk in my personal capacity here. And so I just want to make that distinction that I'm speaking here with you all in two different capacities. So the office that I work in has actually been around since 1978, which a lot of people don't know. Our statutory mandate promotes equity and environmental justice, and we do this by creating a bridge of opportunity for minority enterprises, minority-serving institutions, and underrepresented populations to opportunities that exist in DOE. Within this bridge, we have 3 lanes. We develop programs and policies for underrepresented groups to access DOE resources. We conduct research and analysis related to the impacts of the energy system on communities of color, and we help increase opportunities for minority business entities, minority educational institutions, and historically underrepresented communities. The U.S. Department of Energy defines energy justice as the goal of achieving equity in both the social and economic participation in the energy system, while also remediating social, economic, and health burdens on those historically harmed by the energy system, or frontline communities, or disadvantaged communities. And we do this by explicitly centering the concerns of those communities to make energy more accessible, affordable, clean, and democratically managed. We do this work, and the reason that we're here today is because our energy system is inequitable. The legacy of pollution runs long and deep in communities of color. Black households are more than likely to live in the shadows of fossil fuel generations, and communities of color live with the toxic legacy that is a direct result of the structure and design of our energy system. And I want to make it clear here that this injustice is not coincidental, as we heard this morning from Justin. The racial and economic disparities that we see throughout the United States are a direct result of the legacies of slavery, of Jim Crow, of redlining, and of a myriad other government-sanctioned policies and programs. And just as those government-sanctioned policies and programs were created intentionally, our efforts to undo their harm must be intentional. So we have this big challenge in front of us of how do we actually transform the energy system and while ensuring that it becomes more equitable and just. And the way that we have been approaching that in the Department of Energy is through the Justice 40 initiative as our framework for a just energy transition. For those not familiar, and I'm going to speed through these just so that we have a lot of time for dialogue, the Justice 40 initiative is founded under Executive Order 14008, and it directs 40% of the overall benefits of certain federal investments, like investments in climate and clean energy, to disadvantaged communities. So there's a lot there. And over the past 4 years, we've really unpacked what that means. So we have federal investments, we have benefits, and we have disadvantaged communities. Under federal investments, DOE has identified over 160 covered programs that are subject to the Justice 40 initiative. That amounts to over $100 billion in investments that need to direct benefits. We've identified policy priorities that can guide our benefits, like reducing energy burden, reducing environmental hazards and pollutants, increasing energy parity and parity in clean energy access and adoption, increasing energy resiliency and energy democracy. And then we have disadvantaged communities. The White House came out with a climate and economic justice screening tool that defines disadvantaged communities based on different indicators, and about 27,000 census tracts, including all indigenous communities, are considered disadvantaged. And so we have this initiative, and we have these 3 laws that were established in the past 3 years, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the CHIPS and Science Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act, that actually put money behind these commitments and behind this framework. So the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law makes this huge investment in the nation's infrastructure in nearly a century. The CHIPS and Science Act actually invests in science and innovation to boost American competitiveness. And then we have the Inflation Reduction Act, which breathes life into our clean energy economy through rebates and tax credits. But all of this money, and this is a very overwhelming slide, we have $62 billion that came out of the Inflation Reduction, or out of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, an additional $30 billion that came to us through the Inflation Reduction Act. And these are some of the technologies that we've been told. $340 billion in the Inflation Reduction Act. DOE only got $40 billion of that dollars, but a ton of money really filling in. And we have to direct some of that money congressionally to nuclear, to direct air capture and carbon capture, to grid resiliency, to batteries, and to hydrogen and to weatherization. So because this is an overwhelming slide, just a little bit of a breakdown here of where some of this money is going. We have more money for the Weatherization Assistance Program for making homes energy efficient. We have energy efficiency and conservation block grants and other formula grants that go directly to states to distribute. State energy programs, energy improvement in rural areas, workforce, clean energy to communities, and then under the Inflation Reduction Act, we have different incentives and tax credits that actually help incentivize more clean energy adoption. But all of this money, all this $100 billion, means nothing if we don't make sure that it reaches communities. That is the mandate of the Justice 40 initiative, is actually making sure that the benefits flow down to communities. So at DOE, we've implemented community benefits plans. Community benefits plans are now a requirement for all Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and most Inflation Reduction Act funding. And they're a way for us to make sure that the money is actually going to benefit communities. So it has these 4 priorities, Justice 40, so actually making sure that 40% of benefits flow to communities, DEIA, so equitable access to wealth building opportunities like teaming, access to good jobs, business and contracting opportunities, quality jobs, making sure that we're creating good paying jobs that attract and retain a skilled workforce and give workers voice over on-the-job decisions that affect them. And then workforce and community agreements, so meaningful engagement with communities in labor that lead to formal agreements like project labor agreements or community benefits agreements. These community benefits plans are 20% of all research and development grant application scoring. So they are a big part. They're a fifth of the application. They have to include something in every single one of those categories. They have to be SMART, so specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and time-based, and have budgets associated with them. And if the project is actually selected, the CBP actually becomes required in order to implement the project. And DOE evaluates the applicant based on whether they are meeting the commitments that they said that they would, and if they're not, we can pull funding. So we're really thinking about all of this in a very layered approach. We're trying to make sure that money is getting to communities and that we are braiding all of this together. So we have the federal funding that's coming out, that $100 billion. State and local money that's coming out, local planning, federal dollars, and regulatory authority. We have philanthropy and community coming together to help build capacity. And we have the private sector that can help unlock long-term transformative investment. And so to close, justice requires everyone being all in on day one. This is going to be a challenge, but we are all here together. It requires braiding equity into programs, policies, procurement, and hiring on day one. It requires building a team that looks like America on day one. It requires building a diverse supply chain on day one. It means making place-based commitments on day one. And it means listening to communities on day one, and that has been our commitment. So thank you so much, and I'm excited to get into conversation with you all.
Thank you. So what I'm going to say, I've been on the periphery of the EJ movement, like from the beginning. So my friends, or many of the, including Michael Galopter and Peggy Shepard, we go like decades and decades back. And so, I've been on the periphery of the movement, but, I really am not an EJ, like, I'm not one of these EJ people, 100%. Meaning, like, I don't know most of you. You don't know me. I've been on the ground doing green projects because I'm an urban planner and a professor. That's what I do. I've been in government and, doing projects on the ground, but I've not been in the movement, day in, day out. I knew you existed. Happy about that. But I've been here a couple days, and so I want to make an argument here that the EJ movement is not big enough. The EJ movement is not powerful enough. The EJ movement has to make an alliance with the movement of Black and Latino labor. And that's where I've spent 50 years as part of that movement. And just give you a vignette. When Obama was running for office, he came to a conference a number of us organized within a union called the Service Employees International Union. And within the union, which has over 2 million members, there are a bunch of caucuses. There's a Black caucus, there's a Latino caucus, there's a Indigenous caucus, there's a Rainbow caucus, there's a Women's caucus, there's a Conservative caucus. There are like all kinds of caucuses. So the caucuses tend to attract the most activist members within the union. So we had a meeting of all the caucuses. We said, let's all get together in Atlanta in 2006. And at that time, a young man from Illinois, Barack Obama, was talking about running for president, and he asked, could he speak at the caucus? Because we had 700 activists at our caucus from SEIU. And we said, well, you got to go through an interview process first. You just don't get to speak. And so he sent, people for an interview, and 3 of us met with him, his people, and one of the labor leaders asked his people, why is Barack Obama trailing Hillary Clinton in South Carolina? He's black, amongst Democrats. Why is he behind Hillary amongst black people in South Carolina? Why isn't the candidate speaking about race? And we said, we're a union. This is a union. Why isn't he talking about blue-collar worker issues? We're a union. What is he going to come say? We haven't heard him say anything about that. And his representative said, well, he says he's running for president, but he really wants to run for governor of Illinois. And he doesn't want to upset the suburban voters in Illinois, so he's been downplaying race and class issues. And so the labor leader said, well, he can't come to our conference. And we banned him. And he did not come. And 4 months later, I got a call from a woman named Valerie Jarrett, who was working very closely with Obama, and she said, we heard what went down in Atlanta. And we want you and this labor leader named Jerry Hudson, who was secretary-treasurer of SEIU, we want you two to come to Chicago to talk to us. And we thought they were going to assassinate us or something like that in Chicago. But what they said was, we heard you, we think you're right. We want to change our campaign. Can you help us? And can you put anyone in our campaign who can deal with these issues? So we recommended a relatively young, in his, I don't know what he was, in his early 40s maybe, Haitian American, 30-something, Haitian American guy who was political director of 1199, who is the hospital workers side of SEIU. We recommended him, and he became a leader in the Obama campaign. And then when Obama was elected, he became White House political director. And why did he do that? Because Florida, if you remember, was the decisive state in 2008. Well, 1199 put, at their own expense, 2,000 trained organizers from New York and other parts of the country on airplanes and sent them to Florida. Each one of them had a map and a sheet of paper and assignments for which precincts they would go to. We had Puerto Ricans go to Puerto Rican precincts, Dominicans go to Dominican precincts, Haitians go to Haitians Creole-speaking precincts, African Americans, and they went door to door, spoke to people in their own language, talked about why they needed to come out for Obama, and they did. And Obama was so impressed by that, he made Patrick Gaspard White House political director. That is black labor. Right at the same time, after the election, we went to the national building trades and said, Obama's president, but you didn't help. And the building trades are historically white male construction unions. We said, you didn't help. And we're meeting with the national head of the building trades, 2 of us, 2 black guys. And we said, we respect the fact that you've made construction an honorable profession in this country. In many countries, it is not. We respect the fact that workers in construction make a living wage. In most countries, they do not. We respect the fact that you've built 1,200 job training centers across the Americas. You train more people than any other institution outside the U.S. military. We respect all of that. And we want to join hands with you as brothers and sisters. But you've never wanted to do that. But if you don't do it now, we're going to dedicate ourselves to destroying your unions. And Barack Obama is going to help us. And the head of the building trades at the time, Mark Ayers, who was 65 at the time, he said, I'm from Indianapolis. And when I was 12, my house burned down, my parents died. And me and my 17-year-old brother were survivors. And our black neighbor 4 doors down took us in, and they raised me till I was 18 and able to go off on my own. And he said, for my whole life, I felt like I betrayed black people. And now and he cried. And he said, now's my time to do right. So he wrote a letter to all 320 building trades councils around the country saying, we're forming an organization called Emerald Cities Collaborative. We're joining it to help bring black and brown people into the trades. I want you to join. Out of 320 trades councils, 10 said we want to participate. Okay? 10 out of 320. But we said, we'll work with 10. And we started. Soon after, and here's the connection, I went to Memphis, Tennessee, met with Mayor Harrington, because we had a speaker from Memphis, and said, Mayor Harrington, Memphis owns its own utility. We can actually green Memphis, create lots of good jobs for your constituents in Memphis through this greening. And he got excited. And we'll do it union. We'll get them trained. We'll make sure these are good jobs. He got excited. He invited 120 of his own staff to the meeting. We had it in a police auditorium bigger than this. And he said, I'm all in. So I flew back. I'm going to stop. Well, I'm violating my own rules. But I flew back to D.C. I was so excited. And I told the building trades leadership, Memphis is all in. The unions are finally going to make a breakthrough in the South, which for historic reasons they never did. Now's the time. Memphis wants in. We got the mayor, blah, blah, blah. And they said, we don't want to do it. And I was like, what do you mean you don't want to do it? You don't have any density in Memphis? This is a big operation. Why don't you want to do it? And they said, because we can't decide amongst our individual unions which union will have jurisdiction. So which one will get all these members and be able to collect dues from them and this and that? I was like, and I lost my temper. I said some things in a way perhaps I shouldn't. No doubt I shouldn't. I said, are you telling me you fat motherfuckers, white motherfuckers, are telling black workers in Memphis they can't have a union because you're sitting on your ass in D.C. and can't decide who's going to collect dues? Are you honestly telling me that? That's what I said, literally. And they said, yeah, that is what we're telling you. Say that to say, they're not the ones who are going to organize black workers. That's who Biden relied upon with this legislation to reach the grassroots in black and Latino communities, the building trades. They're written in to the legislation, but they're not going to do that work. Two other things I want to say, and I'll get to the point. I went to a funeral 3 weeks ago for Bill Lucy. Bill Lucy was the leader of sanitation workers in Memphis in 1968. He's the one who invited Martin Luther King to come to Memphis to support the sanitation workers strike. He died a few weeks ago. His funeral was a gathering of black labor leaders and activists going all the way back. Our speaker this morning mentioned Reverend James Lawson. Reverend James Lawson was the person Bill Lucy worked with in Memphis when they invited King there, and Lawson never stopped working on these issues of not just civil rights, but black worker issues. James Lawson, he's the one who coined the term plantation capitalism. You heard this morning. 3 years ago, James Lawson invited 12 of us to come with him to Montgomery, Alabama, because he knew he had terminal cancer, and he invited John Lewis, who also had terminal cancer, for us to talk about a heart-to-heart, where do we go from here, how do we carry that legacy? John Lewis told Nancy Pelosi, who wasn't invited, but she invited herself, and then called 50 members of Congress, and they all came, so our little meeting became a big meeting, and James Lawson cut a new one in Kamala Harris. He, really did, which I think had an effect. But at his funeral were congressional leaders, Benny Thompson from Mississippi's great, were labor leaders, and we came so far from 1968. The head of SEIU is black. The head of NEA, the teachers, biggest teachers union, 3 million people, black. The head of Communication Workers of America, people who install Wi-Fi and all that stuff, black. The head of ASME, a lot of state, county, municipal employees, black. I mean, we have just come so far. The head of SEIU, black, representing, close to 10 million workers, now being led by black unions. So they were there. Now, these federal programs that Yasmin was talking about, like the Inflation Reduction Act, there is uncapped opportunity in the Inflation Reduction Act for green projects and low-income communities, but the feds pay you once the projects are on the ground. They have to be up and operating, which means you have to find, and they'll pay 70% of the cost of these projects. However, you have to finance them up front. You have to finance them up front. That's correct. But you have to finance them up front, which most folks can't do, struggling to do. How do you do that? Well, these unions that I just mentioned have trillions in pension funds. SEIU alone has 1.4 trillion in pension funds. 1199, the hospital workers, most of whom are home care workers who own less than $30,000 a year, have a $14 billion pension fund, just them. And that's small compared to all these other unions. There's a lot of resources there. And these are us. These are movement builders. These are organizers who now run these unions and who are in these unions. That's who it is. SEIU is majority black and Latino and Asian. That's who it is. You have to get in relationship to them. They are interested and concerned about toxicity, about survival on Earth, about greening the nation. They are, but they don't know you, and you don't know them. So that's what I want to say. If we're going to make a change now and actually have capacity to fight, capacity to win, environmental justice has to become worker justice. They have to become synonymous. All these EV companies funded by this money Yasmin was talking about that are popping up in Alabama, that are popping up in Georgia, and that's happening, they say we want to go south for cheap labor. What the HBCUs are saying, what black worker activists in the South are saying, what the hell? That sounds like segregation. That sounds like slavery. Why are black workers cheap? We don't want to be cheap. We're not cheap. We want our dignity. We want our rights. We want to be paid the same thing anybody else does. Mercedes-Benz pays $70 an hour in Germany. Why are they paying us $16 an hour to do the same thing? Right? And to make clean EV vehicles based on black oppression. No more. That has to become part of your movement so that the people understand fully it's about them, not just about the trees. I love the trees. But they have to understand this is about them as well. If we can build those bonds, the pension money to fund us, to move these projects, to take advantage of all these tax abatements will be there. But the relationships come first. The love comes first. The knowing each other comes first. Okay, we'll take a few minutes for Q&A. And then we'll break into discussion groups. Any questions or points of view? Yes?
So I want to say this panel has been so amazing, empowering. The resources and then your powerful truths that I need to get your information because I got a phone call before I even came in here. We got to get down to the bottom of all this mess because it's too much. It's going too far. I need to also be able to, and that's another thing. What happens in January to the funding from the DOE, Department of Energy, when Agent Orange decided, can y'all hear me better? Hi. Okay, so she said I got to start over. So hello, I guess the home audience. My name is Sharonda Allen, founder and executive director of Operation Grow Inc. I wanted to just say again, thank you for the powerful words and speaking that truth, because a lot of people are afraid to tell the truth about who and how people are when it comes to these unions. I understand we started the Green Union, but people are not talking about it. We couldn't move faster or quicker because of the unions, and it's because the unions historically were set up to keep us out. The draft riots were about the fact that they didn't want the union workers were like, you're going to pay us decent money. But instead, they wanted to get cheaper black folks. And that's why those union workers, those Irishmen, were massacring black men who said, well, this is more than what I was getting paid, but it's less than what they would pay the white men. And so we have a history of that in this country. But I also was asking about the DOE funds. What happens January 20th when the Agent Orange comes in and wants to shut these programs down? Yeah, I call him Agent Orange, Orange Hitler, you name it. Let me shut up. I almost said some other stuff too. Let me stop. But I need to be able to access that funding because I'm doing so much of that stuff. But also, do you have to put the money up first for real?
So, can you say your name, though?
My name is Sharonda Allen, bubbly, vivacious social studies teacher extraordinaire.
Where?
I said social studies teacher extraordinaire. I'm from New Jersey.
Thank you.
And I got into like a beef with the my local black Democrats who are agent provocateurs, destroying the people and allowing gentrification. And the mayor's mistress got crazy with me on Facebook.
Where in
and
New
so
Jersey?
I live in East Orange, yes.
Okay.
And I had to have the Black Panthers to come to the last city council meeting with me to let them know I'm not by myself. Your antics will no longer be tolerated. So they haven't said anything to me, because I also said in an interview, and you better not come for the Black Panthers because you need to be worried about the sleeper cells. So that's the kind of activist I am for real on the ground.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yasmin, do you want?
Yeah. Again, DOE hat off. I'm only.
I'm sorry, real quick. I just want to say, we were joking and laughing yesterday. I did not know this was your role. For real. We were clowning out yesterday.
Okay, so DOE hat off. Speculating only, because I don't know. And again, kind of speaking as a civilian here, these are laws. They're codified. And so the money has to keep coming. The question of how is going to be different. And so that's all. I think that's all I can really say, is that, any money that hasn't gone out the door yet is coming. It's coming. It's obligated. We have constant programs. All the money that you saw up there is constantly going out, either to states through formula grants or through prizes or through competitive grants. It's going, though. So find it and use it.
And I would just add, and we'll go to a couple more questions. The tax credit portion of the Inflation Reduction Act is available for nonprofits and municipalities who don't pay taxes, by the way. So the federal government will pay you as if you were paying taxes and pay up to 70% the cost of these projects. And the tax credit portion is uncapped. It could be trillions. And there aren't enough folks even thinking about how to take advantage of it, including cities and mayors, because it's like a gold mine. And we really have to get our heads around that. Last thing is, I believe we have to reach out to the unions, like the building trades. I mentioned that. I told them black people didn't work for 250 years without a paycheck and not realize we had a labor issue. We're not stupid. The problem has been you not wanting to build a labor movement with us. It's not black folks are anti-labor. That's not the issue. Anyway, yes, ma'am, right here.
20 minutes.
Okay, then we'll have 20 minutes. Yes, ma'am, please.
Well, thank you for your remarks about the need for labor and environment to come together. My name is Yannick Joseph. I'm a Yale College alum. I graduated very late from Yale College. While I was away, I was very, very involved in trying to build bridges between various movements. I was involved in a coalition called the 50 Years is Enough campaign that was trying to build bridges between labor, environmentalists, and people in the global south, formerly called Third World. Unfortunately, in most of these build bridging efforts, there was a lot of sabotage. I don't know where these people came from, but there was a lot of division, attempts to divide the movement, and that's why historically the Labor Environment Coalition just didn't come together. Now, I attended the last two conferences on clean energy at Yale. They were organized by the Yale School of Management. And you get a lot of information, inside information from people there. And one of the things that has come out at the last one that was a month ago was that it has been very, very hard for people who are in, even well-funded nonprofits to get funding for disadvantaged and marginalized communities because of the problem you just said. That the government is only going to reimburse them. They have to have the money up front. They have to cobble together a package from philanthropy. They have to jump through a million hoops to try to get these grants. So my question is, are there forces, groups within some of the labor unions that you mentioned that are, more proactive about labor investing up front to try to create more green jobs? Because, philanthropy moves very, very slow.
Yes.
And let me just give an example.
Wait, because of time, we're going to break out in 1 minute. Quick answer to your question is yes. Fred Redmond is the Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO now, which is the National Union Federation. He's from Chicago. He's African-American. He's deeply interested in pulling together pension funds to invest in green projects. He doesn't know how to do that. He doesn't have the relationships, but he sees the strategic value of it because I said if Wall Street becomes the private partner on these green projects, we're going to have green gentrification. We're going to have not community ownership of microgrids and everything else. They're going to own it. It's going to be extraction. He gets that. So he too wants to come to the table, which is part of why I'm saying we need to build the relationships. I'm sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to add also that I heard your point about cobbling together funds and trying to figure out how to get access to these dollars because the upfront cost is high and cost share is ridiculous and all of those things. DOE has been working to try and reduce some of those burdens and barriers to small businesses, disadvantaged businesses actually accessing DOE funds through prizes, which don't have cost share requirements, through partnership intermediary agreements, which is something that we can do, and I can talk to you more about that, and through capacity building on the ground with community groups. And so let's find time and chat, because there's a lot that we're trying to do to reduce those barriers. Go ahead.
Thanks. So we're going to ask that you all, we have the pads in the back. So we're going to ask that you all break into 3 groups, maybe left, center, right. And we'll take the next 20 minutes or so for you to put your own thoughts and ideas or comments, questions out there. And then we'll convene. Let's say we'll convene at 11:35, and we'll ask each of you to report out, and then we'll continue the conversation. Just from the following. Maybe I should turn this on. I don't, but I can write down my info.
Oh my God. Sister, oh, okay, I guess.
If anyone.
Yes, I'm not in the classroom right now. I might be going, but I'm not sure. But yeah, because I was too powerful. I really speak to the crap out of kids. And I was fret with his guy who has a track record of destroying powerful black women who are really teaching the kids.
Hi, we're going to reconvene now. Which group spokesperson is ready?
We're ready over
Okay,
here.
we're going to start off on the left. Here we go.
Yeah, so just to make it short because of the time, first about the hope that we talk about is that we have a huge lack of collaboration between all the organizations to have a different movement towards any change or any JE that we are talking about. So like these organizations, instead of having competition between each other, we think that it's better to come together and move towards one goal without any competition, but with a collaboration of each other together, connected, and hands in hands. And for our second point is a little bit further, so I have to go there. For directions, is we have to strengthen our connection with each other, obviously. We cannot just say we have to collaborate with each other, but we also have to strengthen that connection because on-surface connection is useless. We have to make a deep down connection so that we can stay strong in front of all the hurricanes and everything that we are facing. And obviously, we have to share our resources and we have to get together and bring unity within each other and within ourselves. I guess that's the most important. And third one, action. Youth movement. Never forget about youth movement. Youth are powerful and they have the power to change. So they should be the one that should never be forgotten from any of the movements. And obviously, we need to tackle in with the larger institutions who are wealthy enough to support our projects, our movements, because they are the ones that can help those of us who are in need of the helps that they can provide. For example, fundings. We might not be able to, for example, raise the money, or we might not be able to write the proposal. But if a good institutions like Yale helps us, we can do it, we can win it, and we can have it. And the last one is that we have to meet people in their own space. In other way, we have to value their beliefs, we have to value their thoughts, and we have to give them space to think and to decide. So that's what we decided on for our action at the end. Thank you so much.
Oh, hi. Oh, is this on? Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'll just try and quickly summarize some of our points. So in terms of opportunity, we found that there's a big gap in terms of access to funds or knowledge about it. So how can people find out where they can get the resources they need and connect those gaps? Also opportunities with partnerships between different groups, like people of color, and building bridges beyond sectors in different fields, like bringing back the labor and think about how environment can intersect with other fields as well. We talked about, I don't know, on the second page, in terms of access, like how are we going to get people to understand going into communities directly instead of using just digital or technological databases to find people. So if there's elders in our community, they're not going to be on Google looking up where to find funds. How can we go into the communities and find resources for them? And then also capacity building. There's a lot of organizations that don't have people to write all those grants, look through all the submission responsibilities. So finding different orgs to help support different nonprofits or groups who don't have the capacity to look for funding. And then, those are just some of the points.
Okay, thank you.
We're ready
You
over
have
here.
1 minute.
1 minute,
we're
make
told
it
we
quick.
have to get out of here.
All right, number one, money is out there. We have to work at different levels, state and local, unions, rock, building coalitions, understanding intersection of environmental justice workers and faith organizations, and working across sectors, reimagining prosperity, education. Number 2, build community/connections, communication, build systems to get the funds, crowdsource funding, union ownership, increase democratic engagement. Number 3, reduce barriers to federal funding, reshape philanthropy, coalition building and capacity building, pooling resources and expertise, cooperatives, knowledge sharing with accessible language. So one of the things that we kind of emphasize with this is that we have to create a new system. We have to create a different 501 designation, because these things like unions and the co-ops and those types of coalitions have that federal designation. And we have to, someone else talked about creating businesses where we sell goods or services that would fund and funnel into this. And we also talked about unions actually utilizing their pension funding to fund these things and then receiving the tax credits on the back end at a particular higher percentage rate.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you all. Fortunately, we have your notes. A lot of stuff to dig into and follow up on, but thank you all for being part of this today. And I think it was a very productive conversation so far. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
I would love to be in touch with you because, the Bitcoin people are going after the pensions. Forget about Bitcoin.